Hey team, welcome back to the show. Today it is Coach Andrea, Natalie, and myself, and we are going to be recording an episode talking about Natalie's first season of competing, very successful first season of competing, and kind of just some applicable takeaways to the listener. I think really, of course, like this is the most extreme version of physique transformation, prepping for a bodybuilding show, but it does apply so much in general to just anyone trying to transform their physique, no matter what level you're at. And with both Andrea and myself being at your show alongside Nick Rogers, of course, the man, the myth, the legend, Saint Nick, protector of the Swoley Realm, a really good time for us to just kind of dig into it, like our thoughts, takeaways from the whole weekend, which first and foremost, I had so much fun just being there with you guys was such a good time. Natalie said it was the best weekend of her life, I believe.
I might have actually said that. I
You
mean,
did actually
about
say it was
every
one of the
single
best.
It was so much fun. I was so happy and thankful and grateful to have you both there. It was it was a great weekend, like on the competition side of things. But having you guys there was just, I mean, you guys are always just so much fun to like hang out with. But it's like having that, it just like enhanced everything so much more, and it was a blast, and I am so thankful.
It was a great time.
And it was helpful too, just like to have extra sets of eyes and hands to like help with little things like the fact that I left my entire toiletry bag at home. Free like 6 hour drive. So we weren't going back for it. So little like Friday night Target run. It was really nice like not to have to do something like that like by myself at like 8 o'clock on Friday night.
It was really cool to me to just be there and see the kind of culmination of something that you worked towards for so long. I've said this in person as well, but just it was really cool to see how much you stood out relative to everyone else, which is so cool. Like it just shows how exceptional the work you put in was, and like to see you on stage, like oh wow, like Natalie clearly is the best here with your posing, but from the physique perspective as well. Like that was so cool to me. Because I feel like, I mean, I'm sure we both feel like this. We kind of just like been on this journey with you in a way because we're always constantly talking about it, and it was just really cool to see that and really fun for me as well. So I'm glad we got to be there. Andrea, has Nick like talked about me a lot since you guys left?
Is he still talking about their training session?
You just, we can't talk about anything else now.
Okay, well, I feel like that's sarcasm, but let's get into it. So, Natalie, first for context, can we kind of do a big picture overview of what you've been working towards for the last few years, just for anyone who might not be up in your bodybuilding journey? Basically, like when did you decide this was a goal? Give us a high level overview of the last couple shows and how those went.
So I've been training and managing my nutrition for a really long time, and I coach this for a living. So this is a very familiar world, not bodybuilding specific, but like the lifestyle is one that I've been living and coaching for a long time. And like you started the podcast, Jeremiah, saying, this is definitely on the spectrum. This is the more extreme side of physique development, but it is on the spectrum of physique development. So, been doing that for a minute, I'd say. I did a photo shoot 3 years ago with you when you were coaching me. And like true to form, just like loved the process so much. Like the training and nutrition side of things, the, manipulations, the changes, like the grind, the grit, like I loved all of that. And I've spoken about this at length on like previous podcasts, but just like the vehicle that it is for self-development along the way, like I just love all of that stuff so much. And when I was prepping for that photo shoot, I had a lot of I really like 3 years ago was not that familiar with the bodybuilding world. Um, and when I was prepping for that shoot, I go to a bodybuilding gym and I had a lot of people there just asking me like, "Oh, when's your show?" And I was like, I mean, I was flattered, and I was like, "No, no, no, I don't compete." And they're like, "Seriously?" I'm like, "No, I'm doing a photo shoot." And they're like, "Okay. Like why are you like you're there. Like, why don't you just do it? Kind of thing. And I was just like, no. And I remember at the time, again, I didn't really know anything about the sport. So
Mhm.
I didn't really get it. And I had, like many people, I'm sure, just had some preconceived notions about the sport of bodybuilding and like what it was and what it would take to get on stage. And of course, going to a bodybuilding gym, like I'm kind of around it a lot. But again,
Yeah.
like until you're in it, like you just kind of think and have some preconceived notions. And I remember my best friend, ironically, who lives in the Poughkeepsie, New York area, who I met up with last weekend. I remember her asking me years ago, "Would you ever consider stepping on stage?" And this was maybe 3+ years ago, or 3-ish. But I remember telling her no, and I was like, I have worked far too hard on my relationship with food to compromise that. Like, I'm so happy with where that is, and it's like taken a long time that I don't want to do anything to jeopardize that. So it's funny because she's the one who kind of keeps coming back. She's like, "Remember when you said you would never, like, you weren't gonna do this?" I was like, "Oh yeah, well." But I had people at my gym who, when they were asking like, "Oh, are you like getting on stage? Like, why not? Have you ever considered this? You should." I was like, "Well, what do you mean?" And they're like, "Well, you'd obviously compete in the figure division. Like, you're so figure." And like, I didn't know what that meant, but of course, when anyone says anything to you like that, you kind of start looking into it, and you're like, what are they talking about? And so I kind of started looking at it and I was like, actually, like, and I think we're going to get into this in a little bit, but like, I like that look a lot. Like, I was looking up like figure athletes and I was like, I see what they're saying. Cause I look at bodies all day for a living, right? With coaching. And I was like, yeah, no, I totally get what they're seeing and what they're saying. And like, okay, like, I don't know, maybe. And then post photo shoot, I had to go through like a health phase and, I was kind of recovering from that for a little bit. And through that next kind of year, we started mentoring with Dom as a team. And Dom Kuza is like a very talented bodybuilding coach in the space. And, kind of, so like when I hired Dom, like July 2023, when he started with me, it was like to like just get my health in order and kind of like finish the recovery process kind of thing. And I said, hey, this is something I'm kind of curious about. What do you think? And he was like, yep, we can do that. It's like, okay. So I basically said definitively 2 years ago, like, this is something I want to work towards.
Okay. Okay. What was it that led you? You kind of touched on this, but break down more in depth, like the figure division. What is that, and what attracted you to that specifically?
So within the sport of bodybuilding, you compete in different divisions. And I think this is something I didn't realize at first, and probably a lot of our listeners who, aren't necessarily into bodybuilding might not realize, but there are different divisions. So not every female division looks the same. Like, you're
Hmm.
not aspiring to the same look. Uh, Example being like Andrea is working towards a different division than figure. So my division, the figure division, um, I'm personally drawn to it because I like the shape. It's called figure, and like so they look like action figures. Like, that's
Go
tight.
figure.
Yeah, that's tight. Like, I could look like that. But you hear a lot of people talk in bodybuilding about like genetics and shape and structure, and my genetic shape and structure are extremely well suited to the figure criteria. And these are things that you can't necessarily help. Like, I can't
Have
change
you?
like my clavicle width or like the size of my rib cage, or like how broad my shoulders are, or like my muscle bellies, like all of that is very aligned with the figure criteria. So basically, I happen to really aesthetically like this shape, and I also like training for this shape because there is a big emphasis on the upper body, and like some of the other female divisions have more of an emphasis on the lower body. And like and some women like will have to basically not train their upper body because they get enough just by like doing RDLs, and picking up like a heavy barbell or something like that. And I never want to give up upper body training. So like I like the training too. And I like that like balanced symmetrical look. It is a more muscular division than like bikini. It's a more upper body muscular division than wellness. And I like it, and I like training like it. I can say like I've lived the off season at this point when I was sitting like 35 pounds up from where I am right now. And I liked my look then too, and was like very at peace and comfortable in my body. And you hear a lot of people, when everyone's like, how do you choose a division? You hear a lot of advice out there saying, hey, you do want to think about like, what do you want to look and feel like in the off season? So I think it's very important for people to understand that, it's you can't just like look at the stage pictures when people are like peeled out of their minds, and be like, yeah, like that's what I want to look like, because you're going to look like that for a day. And then, at some point, like I'm not saying I'm gonna like be sitting up 35 pounds again. I don't know. I don't know. I'm gonna do whatever's necessary to like grow and evolve and stuff. But like you can't make those decisions based on like this is how I want to look for that one day. So I can because you're not gonna be walking around like that. Like, yes, the shape should kind of stay intact. But again, like I was about 35 pounds up as of like March, April. And I was happy there and comfortable, and I liked how I looked and felt. And training was great. So I'm comfortable in the off-season body. I love the competition body. So I'm very at home here. Do you feel like that does a good enough job answering?
No, that answers it very well. And like that was my first show I was at, and it was really cool to me. I feel like I thought I understood the appeal before, but I get it a lot more still now. Even within the specific divisions, it was so cool, like how much you try to craft a specific aesthetic and your training and everything you do being geared towards like being able to bring this specific look and like really shape the certain physique. Like what Andrea is doing is completely different than what you're doing. Right. So that was it was really cool to me. And I can even like in the off season, like the like okay, we need to bring in like my glutes more, I need to bring in my glutes more like for this division or whatever it may be like that. I just like as you said, one of the things you mentioned was like just how strategic it actually is, and that was really cool for me to like actually be able to see. But no, I think that answered that very well. Now talk
Yeah,
us
I
through, go
I
ahead.
do want to jump in and say, like, again, for the listeners who might not be as familiar with bodybuilding, it's an art and a science. So a lot of times when we're coaching a lifestyle client, we are trying to bring your best look. Like this is the best version of you. The thing you need to understand about bodybuilding is like, obviously everyone wants to look great, but we are trying to match a criteria. So it really is not like, oh, you look good or you look bad, or you could look better or you look worse. It's not a good and bad. It's like a, do you fit the criteria? So, like that's kind of what this whole process is like when you get super duper lean, it becomes very evident and clear what about your physique needs to improve to better match the criteria. And that's how the judges are judging you. It's not just like, oh, she just like looked really good. Like that's not how they're judging you. They're judging you, so like you could have like a couple people on stage that like objectively speaking look good like to the naked eye, like if they were walking down the street or in the grocery store, like they might turn heads and people would be like, dude, she's jacked. But like that's not the conversation. It's not like, oh, she's really jacked and like she's shredded. Wow, she got really lean. It's like, how does your body compare to the defined criteria? And that goes with muscular density. So like amount of muscle, like what that muscle looks like. That goes with like, again, shape and structure, which you can't do anything about necessarily. That also has to do with like conditioning. So for the different divisions, there are different levels of conditioning. And by that, I mean levels of leanness. So, like it's not about just like getting you as peeled as possible. It's, like my division's not supposed to have like walnut striated glutes. Like, even though, like, again, to the naked eye, you'd be like, dude, her glutes are like dug out. Like, she is lean. Okay, cool. But that's not what the criteria wants for figure.
No, I think that's very well put. Even like for example, like you, if you were like you crush it in your division, if you were to like compete in bikini, like Andrea's division, you probably, despite being more jacked than all the girls who were up there and leaner, you wouldn't have done nearly as well
Yeah, I probably would
because
have
it's not what you've been
tanked.
training for, right? Like it's a completely different criteria, as you said. So talk us through how your first two shows went, and then I want to dig into like what allowed us to do so well. But first, how did your like first two shows go? Give us an overview.
My first show was in Maryland, which is relatively local to me. So I had to drive like about an hour, and I mean, with this traffic, it might as well have been New York. But anyways, so it was a relatively local show, which was great for like a first time out. And I entered like all of the divisions because it was my first time competing, and there are different. Okay, let me say different classes would be the better word. There are different like classes within each competition. So you're organized by like height. So they're height classes. And then the winners of those classes go on to compete for the overall for your division. So like the best figure athlete, of all the heights kind of thing. And then there are like some age group classes like Masters 35 plus, which I entered, Masters 40 plus, which I also entered because I can, and like novice and true novice. And those are like first time competitor. And then the other is like never won an overall. So, I talked to my coach and he was like, just enter all of them. I was like, all right. And I figured, like again, more stage time. So, because I knew I was doing two shows too. So I was like, I want to like get out there and do this. And I am happy to report, I did win all of those classes. And I won the overall, which was really, really cool for like a first time out. And when you win an overall, that qualifies you to go to a national show for a chance to compete for your pro card. So a national show, pro qualifier, whatever you want to call it. And that can be a conversation for another time. But that was kind of the first show. It's an extremely long day, but it goes so fast and it's just like over in such a flash. And it's also very chaotic. Like like they give you have two opportunities basically to like showcase. You've got prejudging in the morning, and that's like your first time on stage where the judges see you for the first time. It's your first time up there that day, and they essentially are making up their minds at prejudging. And then later in the day, you have finals, and you could call it like a confirmation round. Judges do absolutely reserve the right to like change their minds from prejudging to finals, but you kind of have an idea where you're gonna fall by finals because they line you up and they literally compare you. Like it is literally what it is. Like they put you in a line and they move you around so they can see you next to all of the competitors and compare you. And it is a very bizarre feeling to know that you are just like actively like being scrutinized. Like, but that's the sport. Um but anyway, so that was like the first show. And then I had already committed to doing a second show, which was this past weekend in Poughkeepsie, New York. It was a New York Grand Prix. I was excited for that one because I knew it was probably going to be like a bigger, like more competitive show. And like there was better production value. So like I was excited. Like this is a very much about like getting as much experience as I can. And like even deciding if this is something I want to pursue, like past this past weekend. Like, do I want to do this again? So you go to the time and trouble to like diet down and like I mean, for the last 2 years, I like said I was gonna do this. So this is like, it's been a much longer process in my like entire life and journey, but like for saying I was gonna do this like 2 years ago, I'm already here. Like I want to get as much experience as possible and like really like run this thing out. So and then you guys wanted to come, and obviously I wanted you to be there, so like I like committed to doing two shows. So this was the second show, so they were 1 week apart, so back to back peak weeks, which was actually like a blast, honestly. Like it's like so fun. Some people, like, depending on, there's strategy involved everywhere, of course, with like the timing of your season and like how much time you want to have between potential shows, and like or even like committing or not committing to doing a second show, like leaving that open. But I had committed to it. I was like, let's do this thing. And so this past weekend, similarly, I actually only entered three classes because I was no longer eligible for novice or true novice. So I just entered like Masters 35, Masters 40, and then the open, so like my height class, which like
It's
we
under
were
5 foot,
all
right?
basically now, yeah.
Under 5'3".
But I think like all the ladies, the other figure ladies, I believe they just put us all in the same class.
Yeah.
You get, like it wasn't a big group anyways, so they just put us all together and managed to like again win the overall and 35 and 40. So I would say two very successful attempts at my
And
first
best
show.
presentation.
And best
Oh
presentation.
yeah, that was actually super cool. I was excited about that. Best presentation. So, and by presentation, they mean like everything else. Like posing, stage presence, like hair, makeup, glam, like all of that goes into presentation. And it all matters. Like that's part of the game too.
I don't think people know about like the performative side of you like that either, but there's definitely like there's things like that that are a little bit extra is just things Natalie loves as well. So I think all of it just suits you very well. Now, as you said, you won everything you could in each of your first two shows. What do you think allowed you to do so well? And again, from my perspective, look so much better than everyone else in your division in both shows, despite this being your first season competing. Like, what set you apart there?
Um, I got to give props to like my coaches for sure, because that was like the strategy side of things. Um, I Bodybuilding is an extreme sport, even at the amateur level. Like if you want to do well, if you want to do well. Um, and I like it is like ingrained in my DNA to want to do well at anything that I do. Um, that works for me a lot of times. That also can work against me in other ways. But that is, I really kind of don't like those. I don't like it when people say like it's who I am, because I think it doesn't leave room for like, well, you can change that. Like nothing's ever set in stone. Like that's not true. So I hate it when people say that, but like it's who I am. Like I'm kind of an extreme person, and I don't know how to not I don't know how to not is the best way I can put it. Like just go whole hog into something. For the listeners who might not know, I have a prior career as a professional like classical musician. Like I won a job in an orchestra and I did that. And like so think like Juilliard people. Like that's a very extreme profession as well in other ways, but it is like the mindsets are identical. So when people talk about success in bodybuilding and physique transformation, you talk about like doing the same boring, I don't think it's boring, but same boring monotonous things over and over and over and over, and then do it again. And that's exactly what I had to do for my career in music. So, since I was in seventh grade, I was like, I'm going to play in a professional orchestra. And like, I was just like one track minded. Like, even that's how I was like in middle school, and like locked myself in a practice room for hours alone, practicing the same things over and over and over again. And like, you might take different auditions for jobs, but like the stuff that you have to play for those auditions it's the same. They want to hear the same orchestral excerpts. So the same piece of music, basically. And you just practice them over and over and over. And then you like get your friends to come listen to you to make you nervous, and you practice in front of them, and you do mock auditions, and you like it's literally the same process. So while I only committed to bodybuilding to competitive bodybuilding 2 years ago, that mentality and mindset has been with me my entire life. So like the grit, discipline, drive, skill. Like I woke up at 5 a.m. in high school to get more practice in, literally. Like because then I would just like I'd wake up at 5 and then practice for an hour from 6 to 7 before school. And then I'd go to school. My English teacher let me skip class, go down to the band room so I could practice. My mom let me only sign up for 5 classes my senior year so that I could get home early and practice. Like that's what I've been up to my whole life. So basically what we're talking about here is transferring one obsession and hyperfixation to another is the best way that I can put it.
Nat, I thought I was an obsessive person until I got to know you, and, and like 50% of that maybe. It's but it is definitely a gift in this regard. But essentially, it sounds like, I mean, similar to your music career, where it was just so process focused. And like I've never once seen with your own training, nutrition, just like your daily practice, which is kind of what we're talking about here. And I think ultimately is what sets you apart, is just for the last 2 years, I have watched you just be so dialed in, execute so consistently and so well for so long. Like, you don't miss. You don't do things halfway at all. But it has not at all been because, oh, I have to do this because I'm scared I'm not gonna win. It's just you love it, right? And you're obsessed with it in a very positive manner. And ultimately, I think that's what probably sets you apart. Same with like the posing, right? Like, I mean, you've been obsessively practicing your posing for over 2 years now as well, correct? For a very long
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, like the on the posing side of things, because like I don't think I hope to display this like through my Instagram and social media, like how much work it is. And also how again, quote, air quote, boring it all is. Like my Instagram stories are like the same every day with like a different outfit. It's like it's literally the same. Like there's nothing new there. Um, but you know, like on the posing side of things, a lot of people are like, well, I'm kind of curious about posing, like when should I, or about competing, when should I start? I mean, you'll hear a bunch of different answers. My answer is like immediately, because it's going to be the hardest part, I promise. And I come from a dance gymnastics background. So I grew up doing dance and gymnastics. So I'm like a coordinated person, and like, you know, performing in music, doing dance recitals. Like I've been on stage before. So like that is not foreign, but like let me tell you like how much I still struggle with posing as a coordinated person. It's hard. It's harder than you think. So like if you even have an inkling that like maybe you kind of want to go get a posing lesson, go to free posing clinics. So like I started immediately. Literally when I hired Dom and said I want to compete, I hired a posing coach. I bought like a package, like an online package of 10 sessions with my first posing coach. And I started 2 years ago doing one posing lesson per month, and I was practicing 3 to 4 times a week for 2 years. Sometimes more, actually, but never less than three for over 2 years. And then, of course, as I got into prep, then like once I started prep, I literally was practicing my posing every single day, every single day. The only days I took off were like in the last 2 to 3 weeks when we started having conversations about like my body needing, like actually needing to rest. But like every single day of prep, I practiced, and my posing lessons went up to every 2 weeks. And I did a posing lesson in between shows. So I did my first show 2 weeks ago, then had a posing lesson, and then my second show.
So again, very much just the process, not just training nutrition, but also the way you've managed your posing. Again, seems like is a big part of what set you apart. That's a huge part of like that best presentation award as well, which does go into like the overall decision to whether, again, like where you place in your class also. Okay. Um, so we did our photo shoot prep a couple years ago, 3 years ago now, I guess it's been.
It's crazy.
It is crazy it's been that long. You were jacked and lean then. I believe that this weight you ended up at on the stage this last weekend was very similar to the weight you did the photo shoot at, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Like
I did come in, I think, a little bit lighter for the second show.
okay.
A little bit heavier, I think, for the first show, but like right around there to your point.
Yeah,
Right around.
very, very similar. And I know you did like a same weight comparison over the last couple of years as well, from like where you're at currently or very recently to like several years ago. Again, you look great then, you were jacked and lean then, but your physique is completely different now. Do you think like the changes that we saw there, is that primarily you got leaner or you added a lot more muscle? Like
More
what's the
muscle.
difference there? Okay.
More muscle. I think I do think, well, I was leaner because I have more muscle. I mean,
Right.
sorry, I
Same
am leaner
way.
because I have more muscle. But when it comes to like, yeah, I guess that's
It
the answer.
wasn't like we pushed I kind of answered that question when I asked about the weight, but it wasn't like we pushed. I said that and I was like, that's a stupid question now that I think of it. It wasn't like you pushed to lose an additional 20 pounds. You weren't 105 rather than 125. You were like
Yeah,
basically the same weight. We just had a lot more muscle. If we have this a lot more muscle the same weight, we are therefore also a lot leaner. But it's because we added more muscle. It sounds like it's like what you feel like has changed the physique the most.
yeah, I added more muscle and, kind of like we were talking about at the beginning of the podcast, like with lifestyle clients, like we are focused on bringing your best look, your best physique, which there's no criteria for that. Like your best look isn't like someone with really huge lats, but again,
Good for you.
I know,
Yeah.
when you're preparing for, actually, I feel sorry for you, if you're preparing for a bodybuilding competition, and you're trying to match the criteria, that's what we're preparing for. So like it's not like I just randomly, like I did build overall. Like I fortunately, like, and this also goes through like program design and training execution as well. But also genetically, I'm able to build fairly relatively evenly. So like I kind of grow all at once, which is really nice actually. There was no like lagging, body part here or there. So I was able to grow fairly evenly. But that was one of the biggest changes like 2 years ago versus our photo shoot 3 years ago. It was like 2 years ago, I started getting hyper specific and training specifically for the figure division. So yes, I added a lot more muscle, but in the areas that I really needed to, as determined by like my training split and my program and like exercise selection. So, my lats came up a ton because that was a priority. And my like delts definitely in arms for sure. Well, I mean everything grew, but again, like that has come from training very specifically for a look.
Absolutely. Okay. So, over the last few years, are there any aha moments in terms of your training or nutrition that you feel like have really made things click more or contributed to all the progress you've seen during that time?
Yeah, you and I were talking about this past weekend about like photo shoot prep and like I my photo shoot prep with you 3 years ago, I did not miss similarly.
Mhm.
Like
Right.
I
Yeah, you were dialed in.
yeah, like there was not, other than like a predetermined like diet break, maintenance break, there was not one day that I didn't hit my protocols. Like not one. Um, but mindset was so different back then. And like I wouldn't have called myself a super flexible dieter 3 years ago. Like I wasn't, like I was like repeating a lot of meals, like I wasn't doing anything like crazy, but there was more flexible dieting. Like I was still drinking alcohol at the time, not a lot, but like I don't know, every couple weeks I'd have like a drink with like, my mom, at their house or something like that, like literally like one, but that is, I don't drink anymore. So that's just not something that I've done. Um, I've been, I started out this prep with my own meal plan, which my coach trusted me to do, and it was a meal plan. Like I would rotate things strategically, and I've talked about this before, but like rotating fruits and veggies, like for micronutrients, trying to like prioritize digestion, good mix of like satiety without overloading volume or anything like that. So I manage things like really well, and then we just wanted to like formalize it and lock it in, like I don't know, about like 6 or 8 weeks out, something like that. And he just took what it is I'd been doing and just like simplified it, like little things here and there. um it would just like stripped it down a little bit and simplified it just for ease and accuracy. And that's not, we didn't do that, we didn't really need to, like we were still, 3 years ago, like we're getting a good result kind of thing.
Right.
But like we always talk about, there are levels and layers to this thing. And you have to move through some of those levels and layers to get to the next level.
I didn't even use meal plans with people 3 years ago. As
Yeah.
crazy as that is. Okay. So it sounds like dialing that in further, not that you were managing things poorly before, but I've seen that quite often, even with like a lot of coaches going through their first photo shoot prep. I remember the same thing in my prep with Brandon, where it was like, not that I went to the level that you went to, but it's still like a element of I thought I was doing everything as well as I could before. but I was basically just doing a lot of flexible dieting. Like I wasn't really paying very much attention to my nutrient timing, but I didn't even like realize how much more dialed in I could be. And he showed me so much in terms of like, hey, we're just gonna follow this meal plan. We're just gonna follow it for like 16 weeks and we're gonna nail like there was still so much left on the table. I thought I was already doing things well and like I kind of guess it just maxed out my potential when there was still just so much more left. In terms of training,
Well, there were things like
go ahead.
3 years ago. Like 3 years ago, like I knew 3 years ago that because again, I was coaching clients back then too, and had been doing this. Like I knew 3 years ago that like going out to eat was always like a gamble because you don't really know, but I would like still do it. And when I say that, I mean like once every 2 weeks. And like, I would go to like IHOP and get 4 egg whites and like 2 pieces of turkey bacon. Like I was still doing that, but like this prep, like absolutely not. Like none of that. Like I know I said on the last podcast or whatever, like I hadn't eaten out since like April or something. Like not once. And like every time, I'd get my kicks like going and getting a coffee somewhere, but I wouldn't even have them add like a splash of almond milk or like no. If it had a calorie and I couldn't measure it, I didn't get it.
So you haven't even been investing in the stack market then.
No, but I invested. Like I have a lot of stock.
For the 99.95% people who aren't just IHOP fanatics, what the stack market is like on the IHOP app, right? Where you like get pan coin. Do you invest pan coins in the stack market, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
funny, I actually just checked this morning. I have like 156 pan coins, which is a lot. And the pancake of the month that they just released, I mean, the pumpkin spice is back. But they're
Hmm.
also doing like a coffee cake pancake, which
I love
it
coffee
looks
cake.
solid. I'm like, thank God, because I missed out on Dubai chocolate and cookie butter over the summer for their pancakes of the month. Because again, did not eat out. Um, but yeah, like, anyways, jokes aside, I did not, I didn't eat out.
So relative to that, was hunger hard to deal with on this prep? Talk us through your experience there.
For me, no. And I always like to add, like, I'm not trying to sound like a dick, but like, no, it wasn't hard. The best way that I can describe it is that it would have been cool to eat more. Like, if you gave me a choice, sure. I'd love to eat more because food is awesome and it tastes good. And I know that it's gonna like improve training and all of those things. But like, and hunger is so like highly variable and unique to like person to person. There are genetics involved and like sociogenetics. I don't know like what the right term is there, but like there's a lot that goes into like someone's perceptions of hunger and how they experience that. I really was not. I think a lot of that was due to like really good food selection and like within a very controlled set of circumstances, some of the food rotations I did. Um, I did not go to bed hungry once. I didn't, you hear a lot of like prep horror stories about people talking about like I'm going to bed with like hunger pangs or like I woke up in the middle of the night like with hunger pangs. And I really didn't have any of that. I was always ready for my next meal. I would go to bed like thinking about my breakfast because it tastes so good. Like I would just be like, man, I'm excited to like get up and like get through cardio so that cardio is like a gateway to breakfast. But yeah, I hunger really was not an issue for me.
You didn't overdo the volume with your food either, though. Like your meals were satiating, but they weren't like these volume hack things where you had a giant thing of lettuce or or anything like that.
Now, the closest I got was my prep pancake on my dig days. But, that things were low at that point, so you can't even accuse that of being high volume at that point. But it's like I was very consistent with my meal timing. For as long as I can remember, I've been doing 4 meals a day, like even pre-prep. So my body's really trained to like anticipate when mealtime is coming and I have my schedule kind of set up. I usually eat my breakfast a little bit later because I don't train first thing in the morning anymore, really. So I have my schedule set up to where like I'm eating like every like 3 or so hours. it's like I'm always ready for my next meal. Like I know it'll taste good, but like that, it's not like I have to go these like really long stretches or anything like that. So it always helps to know that there's like just one around the corner. And then you go to bed at night and you get to wake up and eat. Like it's just if you kind of approach it like that, I think it's helpful.
Super interesting. I imagine most of the listeners of the show are also familiar with our guy Aaron Straker, who also just crushed his first season of competing. Um, Won his pro card. And actually, this was like a month and 2 months ago now that we were having this conversation. But I was having a similar conversation with him, and I'm looking at our messages right now, actually. Hopefully, he's okay if I actually just quote him here. Because I was talking about how it seemed like this process had been so easy for you and similarly for him. And I asked, what do you think the difference is between you and someone who just finds this so difficult, who's suffering so hard? Because it seems like it's been the same way for Natalie so far, just quite easy. And it's funny how similar his response was to yours. He said, I decided to literally go black and white approach, same food every single day, no variation whatsoever. No macro tracking, just 112 days of the straight identical meal plan, no free meals, just Groundhog Day. Once I accept that there's numerous things I cannot have, it just becomes brutally simple. Same meals at the same time, so hunger normalizes to that. I think is the variables that crush people, having to play that mental battle of I justified this swap yesterday, should I do it again today, etc. And then also basically getting older, so we don't have FOMO, as much FOMO about like missing out on meals with friends and things like that. Which I also think a part of it is just accepting like, hey, I'm just following the meal plan. There's not like I can really like get more flexible at one. It's just this is what I'm going to do. And once you commit to that, that is so helpful. But it is just funny to me how similar that like his response was to what you just said as well.
I
I
think
always tell people in fat loss, like, just make it to where you can think about food very little. Like, that's really the biggest thing is the more you have to think about food, the more decisions you're making, the more that hunger and craving is going to pop up because you can start negotiating with yourself.
yeah, like the more you think you have to think about food, the more you're thinking about food.
Yeah.
And so like that is actively working against you in something like fat loss because like that's where you start to get into like hyperfixation. I
You're like
think that
trying to avoid making it hard, but then you're making it so much harder.
yes.
That is kind of funny.
I
Yeah.
think yeah, there's a lot of irony there and I think a lot of people really miss the boat here because they don't understand like once you just remove the decisions, this becomes so much easier. And like even the little things like ooh should I have rice or potato today, it's like just like no, like there's no room in my brain for that right now. And when you are going into like for our clients who are doing photo shoot preps, like that's a little bit more extreme than an average like lifestyle cut kind of thing. So like these more extreme goals, and then of course on the way extreme side you have bodybuilding. When you're working at that level, you have to understand like physiologically what you're going to be demanding of your body. So like you are going to be exhausted because you're starving. This is controlled starvation. I'm sorry, but it is. So your body's starving and it's scanning. Like when your cell phone's trying to pick up a signal and it's just like the cache is like turning or whatever, like that's what your body's like scanning for like any available energy. And you're expending so much precious energy and resource by even like having these like little minutia conversations multiple times throughout the day. So that might not seem like a big deal. Like, should I have oats or cream of rice today? Like, that might not seem like a big deal, but you multiply that by like how many of those little tiny subconscious conversations you're having throughout the day. You have just leaked so much precious energy and resource that you need for your sleep, your recovery, your job, your relationships. Like, and I know Aaron and I feel similarly, like those aren't trade-offs we were willing to make. It's like I need every ounce of energy. Like I know I'm going to tick all my bodybuilding boxes. I trust myself to do so, but I need every other resource to like show up my best, to continue to show up my best like for my clients and athletes and like my family and my friends.
It is truly great.
I'm not gonna give it away for like a conversation every single day about should I have chicken or turkey. It's like, no, just stop. Like, just remove the decision and like make it easy for yourself.
It is truly crazy how difficult people allow themselves to make fat loss by just playing the macro Tetris and flexible dieting games so much, and then at the same time live in this place of frustration because they're not making progress. Where it just becomes so easy if you just are willing to just, dude, for a while, just follow the meal plan. It can just all be so simple. Um, how quickly did your dieting start to have a negative impact on training, or did it have a negative impact on training? I'm curious your take here because I think there's a perception. I challenge clients on this quite a lot, but like, hey, I'm a week into, or like it's week one of my diet, and oh man, my training is really suffering right now. It's like, dude, we're like 28% body fat. I'm not even sure we're in a deficit yet. Like, I promise you, it is not the deficit that is the problem here if your training is suffering. So talk us through. I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. When did you start to notice a negative impact on training, or did you?
Say like the last, I'm gonna say the last like 3 weeks before shows. Like I'd say I'd be, if I was generous, I'd say a month. But like last 3 weeks or so, did have an incident with the hack squat where I was like, "What is happening?" And I realized that they they put the pegs back on. I thought I had like I was, yeah. Anyways,
It was just basically like 80 pounds heavier or 100 pounds heavier than you thought it
yeah, I
was.
was like, I literally had to take off like 2 plates like per side, pretty much. Like, what? What is happening? Yet none of my other lifts were like going down. It's like, this doesn't make any sense. Figured that out. So that was like a major crisis moment at the time, and now we laugh. But it was it was a big deal at the time. But yeah, like again, similar to the hunger conversation, where it's like, yeah, it just kind of wasn't problematic, but like if you gave me a choice and said, Natalie, would you prefer to eat more? I'd say, sure, yes, I would love to eat more. Similarly to training, like, would I prefer to like be better fed and fueled for my training? Yes, of course. Now you remove that because it wasn't. It really wasn't bad. Like, it was harder mentally. Like the last 3 or 4 weeks, leg days were just mentally tough. Like I definitely had a handful of days where like I just wasn't as like jazzed to go, which for me is rare, right? Like I always love to go train. And that started creeping in like last like 3 to 4 weeks. Um, but like, there was a while where like I progressed really a lot in my training through my prep. And I would say the last 3 to 4 weeks, it was more like it kind of was just more at a standstill rather than I was regressing. And then the last couple weeks, and that's a different conversation because like peak weeks, like I intentionally took things back and down, and now like I'm right now in a photo shoot peak week for like final hurrah. And like it feels really crappy this week. But I'm due for that. Like
Yeah.
it's like with the what I have like the devastation I've like wrought on my body at this point, like it's about time for that to start catching up. But yeah, it just, it's funny because like we have a lot of conversations with clients. Like I know we all use a lot of like calorie cycling, and those high days and those refeeds like don't always hit on a leg day. And I know like I would say I get that response from clients the most, like, hey, can I like shift this high day? Because I do legs tomorrow. And sometimes I'm like, no, better luck next week when that cycle rolls around. Like it's, a lot of times we're trying to like strategically cycle so that like, hey, we want these like 3 consecutive days of digging and like really progressing within this deficit. Like, no, I don't want you to do a low day and then a high day and train legs and then two low, like, and I definitely had to experience like the way, because my coach was very kind of like proactive. Like no two almost no 2 weeks were the same. Literally no 2 weeks. And then I got to a point, I think the last month or so, like 4 to 5 weeks out, where I was checking in with him like every 3 days, and it would be like here's the plan for the next 3 days. Here's the plan for the next 4 days. And it would be everything. It would be like, this is the meal plan you're going to eat. So like, again, like if you have like a low, medium, high day kind of thing, it would be like, here's the meal plan you're going to eat. Here's what you're going to do for cardio. Like, you are going to do this amount of cardio and this type of cardio on these days. Here's what you're going to eat on these days. And here's what you're going to like. At that point, he wasn't micromanaging, like, and you're going to train legs. I was like training my own schedule, which is always the same. But the funny thing is like I said, no 2 weeks were the same, but every time I had to dig, it always ended up on like my Sunday leg session, like every damn time. And I was like, God damn it. Like it was just like clockwork. It would be like, I would dig like 3 days in a row, and that session would always be like, dig day 3 of 3. And it's like, yep. And then he'd also be like, and we're gonna do, 8 rounds of hit plus 30 minutes lists. It's like, yep, cool. Every time.
Just trying to build character.
Yeah. But it's like, he didn't know that Sunday, he doesn't really know that every Sunday this is what I train kind of
Right.
thing.
Yeah.
That's just the way like the calendar and the cycle fell. And I was like, yeah, cool. And so those training sessions mentally were the hardest. But physically I always like got it done.
I think it is normal in a diet mentally for it to feel a little bit more difficult. You might not feel quite as amped to train. But a lot of times, if your performance is actually suffering or actually feel like shit, I find it is so often just someone is doing a poor job with things like their nutrient timing, or we're really trying to save up most of our calories for the end of the day, or from a food quality perspective, we're doing things like eating very low nutrient density diets. So we are a lot hungrier because the foods that we're eating aren't satiating. We're missing a lot of the micronutrients. We need to feel our best, perform our best, so we feel like shit. Or we're managing sleep poorly. Like it's so much more often things like that than it's like, oh, we're 2 weeks into a diet. Especially like you mentioned, like it was like a month out maybe where we started to feel the effects a little bit more, where you're peeled by that point. You are extremely lean, right? Where your body fat percentage has a huge amount to do with that as well. Probably the most important variable there. Unless you've been fasting for like 3 days consecutively, you might not feel your best, right? But I think that's just so important to understand. Like the diet, like your training, week one of a deficit, our training shouldn't be hurting.
But we see this like outside of dieting as well, like on the mindset side of things. Like if you decide it's going to be a crappy session, it's probably going to be a crappy session, regardless of diet. Like mindset is so, so, so important. And I think also like in my off season, I mean, I had a lot more flexibility everywhere in my life in my off season, but I would occasionally train early in the morning, but I had more resources available to me. Like I had intra workout. I had the carbs to have like a snack before my early morning training session. And when you get to like the depths of your fat loss or your photo shoot prep or something like that, those resources were taken away. So again, similarly to the conversation we had around food, like just remove the decisions. My training became like, this is the time of day that I train. That's it. Always. So like I always like timed my meals and my training to where like I knew I was going to get through. I had the best chance of like getting through my training and not like thinking about food or being starving. Cause like I knew I got another meal on the other side. Like I didn't like put off my training. And by that point I hadn't eaten in 5 hours and I'm like, okay, let's go hit legs. It was just always like my meal times were the same. And then I go to train and then I eat another meal. And like, I will say that towards the end of prep, when, food was a bit lower and, I was like, cardio was higher, so it was a bigger time commitment. And like, I'm posing every day. I'm like going to more posing lessons. Like the time commitment is real. There were a couple days where I would, depending on what I had going on with work, I would train after I'd switch my meals 2 and 3. My third meal is kind of like a very light snack because I wanted a big meal post training. And I my first meal of the day, like which I kind of put off until 8 a.m. And I wake up very early. Like I wanted that to be a big meal too. So like I would strategically like switch those meals just so that I could have more on my stomach before going to train. But like that was never randomly done. That was always like, okay, this just makes sense for me today. Like I'm gonna need to like take care of these responsibilities, and I know that like I can't go that long without eating. So like I've gotta like have this meal and then go train. And
Makes complete sense. You touched on the mindset side of things quite a bit there, and I am curious, having gone through the photo shoot prep with you, I know that the actual experience of the photo shoot prep wasn't something at all that you enjoyed. Now, being with you the couple days before the show, seeing you up on stage during the show, it looked like you were just having an incredible time. Seemed like your enjoyment of this process and the actual, not the process, but the actual experience, like the actual event, was so much different for your show versus that photo shoot. What do you think it is that led to that being so much different, so much better? And will you answer that? I am going to pee.
I decided that it was going to go well. I decided ahead of time that I was going to have fun. I really disliked my photo shoot experience, like the actual day. Love the process. We've talked about this on other podcasts, but love the process and like how I got there and lead up to the photo shoot. Hated the actual day. Like I felt so awkward in my body. I didn't feel like I could express like the physique that I had built. Like none of my work showed. I like felt so awkward. Like what do I do in front of the camera? I just like my face looks weird. My eyes look crossed. Like what? Like I just was like like hated it. Didn't like the photos. And like that was just such a shitty feeling. Like it was shitty at the time and it was shitty after. Like even recounting that experience, like I hated how I felt about it. And I hated that I felt that way. And I was like, I never want to feel like that again. And so like that was part of the really fun challenge for me with deciding to compete was like, I know I can tick my boxes, like not worried about that, but like what is actual show day going to feel like? And like I was I went through like a lot of shifts mentally of like trying to get ready for this. And my greatest kind of fear through all of this was feeling the same that I felt on that photo shoot day. So Jeremiah's back. But I was just saying that like my greatest fear through this process was that I was going to step on stage and like feel the exact same way I felt during that photo shoot and then feel the same way after. Like, ugh, like I love the process, hate it. Ugh, like the stage was gross, like hated that. That was such a fear. And I started this whole process wanting redemption for that. And my goal was, of course, to bring my best, but like I knew I would. But my goal was to bring my best mindset too. And like, even as my career as a classical musician, I hated the concerts. Like, loved the rehearsals, loved the lifestyle, like, hated the performance. I competed in CrossFit. Same thing. Hated competition day, never felt like I did my best. Always felt like I was better in rehearsal or practice or whatever. So like it was this now was a pattern that I identified in myself and sought to correct and fix. And I did so, like, I did a lot of work. I mean, like, I went, I had some life coaching with like Leah. I did like shadow work. I have been journaling every single morning since January. Like, that's something I have not given up on. Like, I do my daily Stoic reading every single morning since like January or something.
I didn't know you were
Every,
reading that too.
yeah, I've talked about it before, but you clearly don't remember. No, I have it's like a 365 like short stoic meditations, and I do my daily stoic like every single morning. It's just part of my morning routine, and it's short. Like, and same thing with my journaling. I set a timer for 5 minutes, and it's like, Natalie, you have no excuse not to put in 5 minutes of journal. Like, you can afford this time, and I did that every single morning since January. And I think we talked about this a couple of weeks ago on a podcast, but I recognized about a month out that this is when this started to rear its ugly head. Like all of these familiar feelings were coming back. And I was like in a place where I was really fearing show day. And not from an outcome sense, not like what if I lose, because like probably gonna lose more than you're gonna win. So like anytime you compete, like that's a very real possibility. But I was like fearing that visceral experience that I had with the photo shoot. And it's so gross and icky. And I was like, God, I just like don't want to feel like that again. And I was like starting to kind of dread it. Like, okay, now it's like this thing that's like this ominous thing that's looming and approaching that I just kind of like have to do because like I'm having a blast right now, but ugh, here it comes. And what's it going to be like? And then I really had this like kind of epiphany through my morning journaling. And I was like, I'm like so hyper fixated on how I don't want to feel on show day. How do I want to feel? Like I had conversations with myself about like what I wanted to bring to stage. Like I was very much like I want to bring like strength and femininity and poise and confidence. But it didn't occur to me to have that conversation with myself of like how do I want it to feel on show day? And I had this very like elementary response of like I want it to feel fun, like my goal is to have fun, but like it's like no, like in my body and my mind, how do I want to feel on stage? And once I started focusing more on like how I wanted to feel versus how I didn't want to feel, there was like a really positive shift and one that I'm like really, really proud of, actually.
It was cool to see you work through all of that because I know we had talked about that a lot, and I know that with your music career, again, like you had always mentioned how much you hated the performance side of things, and again, kind of feeling like that was the same as like how the photo shoot went. And I know you had set your intentions from the start of prep in terms of like I am going to enjoy this, like the experience is going to be different. And it was cool. I feel like we really got to kind of see you work through that in real time, and I am really proud of the growth there because that to me at least seems like such a like you kind of being that recurring pattern is just so cool to me.
I'm
And getting
really,
just fucking shredded in the process is just as cool.
yeah, I'm
So
tremendously proud of the mindset piece because I think that one of the biggest realizations I had through this whole thing is, everyone talks about like how hard prep is and it'll test you and like it has a way of like things bubbling to the surface, like things that you kind of thought that you dealt with and it's like,
mhm.
whoops, there it is again. And I really misunderstood all of that because the things that you hear other people talk about prep being hard. It's like, I'm hungry, I'm tired. I'm like, that was not hard. Like this, I never once was like, do I trust myself to like hit my training every day? Like, do I trust myself to execute? Like, no, like that wasn't the hard part for me. But I think everyone says prep is revealing, but I think that's the thing. It's like everyone's going to have their hard, and prep, I think, will reveal what it is you struggle with. And so for me, I've never struggled on the execution side of things. So why do we think I'm going to struggle with it now? Like that was like such flawed thinking, I think. And what I struggled with was exactly this, like that manifesting as like self doubt and like old patterns repeating. Like that's what's hard for me. And that was my prep hard that I had to work through.
It was really cool to see you work through that though, and I'm proud of you as well. Reflecting back on the last 2 years since you committed to competing, was this whole experience better, worse than you expected?
Better and different. I think because I expected it to be more, again, not sound like a dick. I expected it to be more physically challenging. And because of that, I expected it to be more mentally challenging because of the physical side of things. Um, but it was challenging. I think it's actually so cool that it ended up challenging me exactly how I needed to grow. Like that's so cool. And remember, like when we did this episode, when I started my prep, that's what I wanted out of this. I was like, I'm so excited to see who I become on the other side of this. And like, that is so cool to me. Like, I did that. Like, I worked through all of that. That's not to say I'm like done. There's clearly like going to be, life is always challenging. There will be like more mindset work for other things, but like, specific to this process, like, I'm so proud of that. I think that's so cool. It was I think like, Aaron Straker and I have talked about this before too, and he's mentioned like it's this I've been living this lifestyle for a very long time. So it was pretty seamless, like flowing from like growing season building into prep, like kind of just doing the same things, but like ratcheting up the dimmer dial, the intensity switch gets flipped. Um, but yeah, like it was better, I think. I think it was better than I thought it was going to be. And like I know you guys, I said to you guys I was kind of disappointed that it wasn't harder because like I really just like I wanted to hurt. Like I wanted to suffer. But again, to my earlier point, suffering presents in different ways and hurting presents in different ways, and mine just wasn't physical.
Wise. And who knows, Dom might just keep dieting you for just the next week, for like the next 3 months, and it might really start to hurt.
I'll
What would
show her.
your advice be to our average listener, think our average client considering competing? I know a lot of people are very much anti-competing. Even you mentioned like I would never, a few years ago, you thought you'd never hop on stage because you now had such a healthy relationship with food. Or are you more pro than competing? Just what would your advice be?
I have thus far had a very positive experience. I go to a bodybuilding gym. All my friends go to a bodybuilding gym. I talk to you guys more than anyone. So like I'm very entrenched in this world. So I love the world and I would want everyone to experience that, like, oh, this is all so cool kind of thing. So I had a very positive experience. So like from there, I'd be like, I'm pro, everyone should do this. But like as a coach, I don't think everyone should do this. Um, I think the biggest thing is like if you love this lifestyle, like it doesn't feel like work to you. Like, well, yeah, no shit, I'm gonna like train 5 times a week, and like of course I'm gonna hit my macros and like, oh, coach gave me a meal plan, I'm on it. Like, if that's you, you're a good candidate. But if you're someone who is struggling with a relationship with food, that's something you want to get in order first. If you're someone who is in a health phase or like working through certain like, impaired biofeedback, like we need to get through that first. So it's not like never, but maybe like not right now. Like there are certain things you want to have in place first. Um I think that the attitude with which you pursue anything determines the outcome. Like, and we talked about in the beginning of the podcast today, you should not compete if it's just because you want to look like that. Like, oh, like I just the glam looks fun, and I'm like, I am not gonna lie, it is super fun. Like to have your hair and makeup done, and like again, like not looking like I'll ever get married at this point, so like this was my wedding essentially. But like if that's kind of like the experience that you're like, it is a blast. But like on the body physique side, like this is a really expensive sport because no one's paying for any of that but you. The coaching, the food, the body work, the posing lessons, the hotel, like so like there's the financial side of things. You gotta be ready to commit there. But yeah, like I had a blast with it, but you need to just like really love this. And if you are only intrigued because you think like the stage pics look cool, abort mission. Because like you again, that is what a talking through the peak week podcast the other week, like that's what peak week is. You are peaking for a day, for an hour, even less than an hour. Like you're in constant touch with your coach about like I think I'm going to go on at this time. I don't know, like they're running late, like and they're manipulating variables up until the very final like you stepping on stage so that you can step on stage look your best. And like that's not the look you are going to walk around in for like the next week and like all of that time. So like that's the biggest thing is like it does objectively in my opinion look super cool from the outside, but like don't do this for the transformation, for the
Yeah,
physical transformation.
I think that's very well put. I've chatted with a few individuals who were interested in it because they saw it as the way, like I hate where I'm at right now. And if I decide to do a competition, I think that'll really inspire me to like get my shit together.
Right.
It's like terrible idea. Please
And
don't.
I had like conversations with competitors backstage and like now we're like Instagram friends, and that's a really like fun camaraderie aspect to all of this as well. But like, everyone's coming from a different place and like different coaching. Some were like self-coached, and it was really interesting like kind of talking to people and watching them post show and like how they're handling post show with like food and like how they approach this whole, they're like, "Oh my God, I'm like hyper food focused," and like, and it's like, like, and like I think your motivation really needs to not be outcome oriented. It really has to be process oriented. Because, like, again, like I worked so hard on my relationship with food, I don't want to ruin it. And like I've worked hard on my relationship with my body, and that's not to say that there won't be challenges ahead in like the reverse diet and like, other phases and whatnot. So like I'm not going to sit here and pretend like, oh, this is like, I haven't even started reversing yet. So it's not like, oh yeah, I got this down. But like I, as of today, as we sit here and record this, I, I checking in with my coach every day this week because I have a photo shoot on Saturday. Dom and I are best friends at this point. It's one-sided, but I like to think we are. But, he was asking me yesterday because I didn't check in Sunday post show, and then I checked in yesterday, Monday, and he was like, "How are we feeling?" And I was like, "If I'm being honest, fine. Sure, I'm like a little tired. Hunger is fine. I'm not food focused. I'm good. Like let's finish the job for this photo shoot. And so like you don't need to worry about how I'm feeling. Like do what we need to do to bring a good result for Saturday. I'm there."
I love it. Are you personally interested in coaching more competitors or aspiring competitors? Where's your head at there?
I would say yes. Because, and I don't want to be that coach that's like, I stepped on stage twice and now I'm a bodybuilding coach. However, I'm not a new coach. Like I've been coaching this process for years. I have very successfully coached many clients at this point to really brilliant photo shoots and like stoked with every single one of those outcomes and results. The process is the same. It is the intensity with which you pursue the process and you coach the process. I, having now firsthand been through it and having been through it in the most extreme way possible, because that's how I pursue everything, I do feel like I could very well guide others. And I also would be very strategic in vetting potential competitors. So, current clients, if you're listening and you're interested in competing, or maybe future clients who are like, I'm kind of interested, like I know the questions to ask to determine like, are you a good candidate for this? And I don't think my answer would ever be absolutely not to anyone. I think it would be more not right now. For some people, it might be like, yes, absolutely, we can work towards this. And it's not like we're going to start prep tomorrow. It might be like you need a lot more growth, and then yeah, like, but sure, let's work towards it. But I think there would be a lot of conversations where it would be like, not yet. Like, here are some things that we need to kind of get in order. However, we can start that process. We can start getting your biofeedback in a better place. Like, we can start like, working on that relationship with food and like what it means to like heal that a little bit more.
I love that. And anyone who is interested in competing, either yourself or Andrea, I mean, either way, you'd be in incredible hands, Andrea. Of course, you've taken a few clients to stage, won a pro card, but either of you are so well suited for that. So I love that. So like, if there's something you're interested in, again, current client or potential client, feel free to bring it up, reach out to Natalie or Andrea if you like Andrea better than Natalie. Um,
And usually I
last,
also love talking about it. So like I've already gotten some cool questions about like, someone was like, "Hey, can I ask like," she's like, "This is a dumb question, but like, did you get hair extensions?" And I was like, "It's not a dumb question." And like, no, I didn't, for the record. I wanted to, but cost came down to like, I was like, yeah, we can live without that. But in any case, like Andrew and I like love talking about bodybuilding.
Yeah, there are
So
no
like,
dumb questions. I was asking you dumb questions like
no.
shaving stuff, like there all of it is so like you hear stuff about it, but you don't know until you actually either do it or go through it with someone else. There's no dumb questions at all.
yeah,
They're truly
you do have to shave your butt, is what I learned.
Apparently. Yeah.
shave your entire body. There are a lot of weird things that bodybuilders do and have to do. And those aren't dumb questions because they're really strange.
Yeah.
But I think I said this on a previous podcast that like any question you have about bodybuilding, like why do they do that? The answer is always because it'll make you look your best on stage. That's in some form or fashion, like that is always the answer. So like the tan, the glaze, the why the this, why the because this is how you can look, how this is how you can best present your physique on stage. That's always the answer.
Yeah. So I think the thing that most people are probably wondering to kind of wrap this up is now that you're done with your competition season, we're moving into season one of Lats to Love podcast, the dating show where Andrew and I help Natalie find love. What are the biggest traits you're looking at or for in potential suitors?
Got to be an IFBB pro. I'm just kidding.
Okay. You heard it here first. Um, any closing thoughts you would like to leave the listeners with before we wrap this up?
Yeah, it would be cool to revisit this like a month from now or so because I think there will be just more take. I still don't feel like I've had time to like
Yeah.
actually sit and digest or even go through like professional photos that I have now. Like,
It has literally only been like 2 days. So yeah, we're pretty quick
yeah,
on the gun
like, and
here.
I'm still a little bit on cloud nine, and I'm also still sort of in like peak week purgatory because like I have this like one final box I got to tick on Saturday with this photo shoot, which by the way, full circle moment, I'm really looking forward to. I think it's going to be really fun, and that is not the way I felt 3 years ago, as you know. So like I've already decided that this photo shoot's going to be a lot of fun and go well, so I'm looking forward to it. But like I am looking forward to a change of season and in terms of what's next for me, I think that would be a good conversation for another pod because like I haven't gotten to like reflect and also circle back with my coach in terms of like, hey, like now what? Like what's the plan? Like what do we want to work toward? Um and so I'm interested to know that as well, but I don't really have any good thoughts yet to bring to the table to that conversation with my coach. I would I can definitively say that like I would like to step on stage again because I had a blast. I loved it. I need my finances to recover. Obviously like need my body to recover, you know, so it's not like it's you don't do a yearly prep pretty much. Um I am qualified for a national show, the which would be a chance to go for like a pro card. Um do I want my pro card right now? I'd be lying if I said no. Like, of course I do. Of course I'm an extreme person. Of course I do. Like, I want to win a pro card. But, you know, I don't know. Like, after talking to my coach and letting the dust settle, I give myself permission to, like, change my mind. But for now, that's where I am.
Love it. We should for sure revisit this in like a month because I agree. I think we'll have more thoughts and a lot more to add here. Let's go ahead and wrap it up there then. Thank you so much for sharing all of your process and for letting us be a part of it as well. It was so fun to be there. We are immensely proud of you. The way you just not just the show, but again, just like it was so cool to see that as a microcosm of just how exceptional you've been with your process over the last few years. So we are very proud of you. Very proud to have you as a part of the team. Um,
And we
if you
met Sam Sulik. For
and oh
anyone.
yeah, we met Sam Solik by the way as well. That was pretty
Who
cool.
is actually an IFBB pro, by the way.
And, like, really big. He is giant.
He is a
Like,
large man.
yeah.
Super cool dude. All right. So if you are an IFBB pro, it sounds like you slide into Natalie's DMs. If not, sorry, losers. Um, but that's all we have for y'all for today. If you enjoy the show, do us a huge favor, leave us a 5-star rating and review. If you are interested in coaching, you can hit the link in the show notes. You can DM any of us, and we will catch you guys next time.